Hello, everybody. This is Eleonora Guzzi and my thesis director, Margarita Alonso-Ramos, from the University of A Coruña, that is based in Spain. So in this talk, we are going to present our research about the user's needs of a lexicographic tool for academic writing in Spanish. So first of all, let's introduce the object of this presentation. So this talk is about identifying the user needs related to the academic vocabulary, especially to lexical combinations such as collocations and formulas. So when a student writes an academic text and thinks of the proper vocabulary to use, the user can face situations such as, for instance, in relation to collocations, if the user needs a verb that combines with a noun conclusion, does the user know how to find it? Or with reference to formulas, also known as lexical bundles, if the user needs another expression similar to, for instance, it must be stressed, is the user able to recognize the discourse function of these expressions? Or does the user know how to find an expression to emphasize what the user wants to say? So we propose to verify if our lexical tool for Spanish academic writing called HARTA can meet those needs. The motivation that follows up our research is mainly that we believe that there are no native speakers of academic discourse. In fact, we found out problems in relation to academic lexical combinations in our novice corpus, such as low vocabulary variety to general language lexical combinations, and so on. Therefore, the goal of our research is to provide a detailed description of the HARTA consultation behavior in order to identify the user's needs and evaluate if HARTA can meet those needs. So this description would allow us to answer the following research questions. So the first one will be, which are the needs of users as for academic lexical combinations? So do users grasp the difference between collocations and formulas without knowing necessarily these terms? Or do they know how to find this combination in a lexical tool? The second one will be, is the corpus a way to solve lexicographic needs related to collocations and formulas? The third one will be, there a correlation between the lexical competence of users and the successful search in HARTA, and between the lexical competence and their profile? And finally, the fourth one will be, can users of HARTA improve their performance in a production task during using HARTA without specific training? So in this talk, we will focus mainly on presenting the analysis of the observed behavior of users of HARTA and discussing the best way to provide lexical information which serves to text production. And in order to do so, we divided this talk into 5 sections. So first, we will start presenting briefly how HARTA works. Next, we will focus on the design of the observational study. After that, we will talk about how we analyze the collected data. Then we will deal with the results obtained. And then finally, we will draw the conclusions and plan future work. So this tool provides information related to 2 types of academic lexical combinations, as we introduced earlier. So we have first collocations that are built up of a base, a noun, here a conclusion, and a collocate, here the verb to extract. And the second item will be formulas that are a sequence of constrained words with a compositional meaning, such as dicho de otra manera, to put it differently, which are related to discourse functions. The user can access the information implemented in HARTA through 3 ways. So if we type here, for example, conclusión, we have a link to the collocations, a link for the formulas. So if we click here, we are linked to the Dictionary of Collocation of Spanish. So here we have all the possible collocates for the noun conclusion. Also, we can click to the formulas link to the noun conclusion. So if we click, for example, in conclusion, have all the information for this formula. The second tab will be the discourse function, and here we have a list of our functions that are implemented in our database, and if we click in one of them, we can get all the possible formulas that are linked to the function to add information. And then the third tab will be the search in the corpus. So users had to think of an alternative to the expressions underlined in 10 given sentences, first without tools and then after checking HARTA. Of those 10 sentences, 5 had collocations and 5 had formulas. In our sample, there were 12 participants distributed in 3 groups. So we have the bachelor students group, PhD and master students group, and professional groups. They were native or Spanish or non-native, but with at least a C2 level of Spanish, as we can see here in the table. So the administration of the task was sent by email with the instructions for to all the 12 participants. So they should read the instructions and watch 3 brief video tutorials about how HARTA works, around 5-6 minutes, and they had to record the screen and their voice as soon as they began the task. There was no supervision and the task was designed to last about 30 minutes. And we wanted to implement the Think Aloud protocol because we thought it was the most appropriate for our purpose. So it allowed us to examine the thought processes of the participants while searching and see what goes through their mind when they have to face a task of this kind. So once they sent us the recordings, we independently watched 3 videos of the bachelor students group to generate and agree our coding categories. And the remaining 9 videos were distributed between the 3 researchers. They were initially coded by one researcher and then checked by the rest. So we created a table with detailed information related to every action the user made. So we had information like who was the participant, the target, the timing, the action, the search, and in which tab they were located in. Here we have an excerpt of codes and definitions. So the action types mean the text that is keyed in, or click on academic expressions mean when the user enters to the tab of academic expression in HARTA, etc. So each item received a score depending on the way the user obtains a result. So we give 1 or 0 to the categories of new result, validity, and the expected way, and then we sum these results into the score. Here we have 2 cases of the same target analysis with the collocation extraer conclusiones. So PhD 1 gets a score of 3, PhD 2 gets a score of 1 because Subject 1 gets a new and correct result and access HARTA using the correct tab. But Subject 2 employs the corpus to only check the target and gets 1 point because the corpus in HARTA is designed as a support interface, but it does not offer the information in a way that user can find new collocations. So we follow this process for each item, and once all scores are assigned to each item and user, we rank them. Now we'll show some results obtained from the collected data. So as for research question 1, first regarding to collocations, we found out that most users do not know the way to find collocations. Even before looking up HARTA, they pretend to look for synonyms, but the search for collocate is not a search for synonyms. Some learners do not have an understanding that the difference between collocates do not lie in dictionary definitions, but in the way the words are used. Also, collocational information is encoded in the entry for the base, that is the noun. So if the user accesses the information from the collocate, the search will be doomed to failure. There is also a tendency to treat collocation as items. So some of the users type the whole collocation in the search tab. So seeing these issues, they show difficulties to find collocations in HARTA, but these can also be caused by the kind of interface, because collocations are described in DICE, the Dictionary Collocation of the Español, that is linked to HARTA, that has a different visual aspect and is more specific, and this may lead to confusion. In relation to formulas, some users doubt about the lexical status of formulas. Moreover, some of them type some part of the formula following the traditional procedures of the traditional dictionaries, where multi-words units don't have their own entry. Another result that we want to emphasize is that the most users have difficulties in recognizing the discourse function tab. So they do not link the formula and the function. And especially this last point is related to the handling of HARTA. So they do not know how to look for the list of formulas included in a specific discourse function. In addition, if they do not read the information in the formula, they need to scroll the list of functions and try to find the one that fits better. And this search is not always successful. As for research question 2, first we have to say that the interface of the corpus has been conceived as a kind of backup of other functionalities. We hypothesize that the user of HARTA who looks up the information in the corpus instead of using the other tabs is less efficient. And after analyzing the videos, the results obtained from our sample in fact confirm that. So for instance, a subject PhD1 gets a high final score and finds the information without a corpus, in contrast to PhD2 who receives a lower score and uses often the corpus tab. Data also shows that the users seem very familiar with the corpus interface, so most of the times they know the difference between lemma and form, for instance, and they want to check always the targets and their searches in the corpus. They check especially collocations. However, the interface of the corpus in HARTA is not designed to find alternatives for collocations, because it serves more for finding examples of words or chains of words that go together. With reference to research question 3, we evaluated the proposals they made before using HARTA, and we observed different behaviors. So not all users make proposals without losing up HARTA. Some users make proposals that are not correct, and some users make many and adequate proposals. Data show that there is no correlation between the lexical competence and the final score after using HARTA. So PhD1 does not make proposals but obtains a high score, but Professional 2 makes many proposals and obtains a lower score. And finally, there is no correlation between the profile and the score. So we can see here in the table the best and worst scores, and we can see that there is no correlation. And in relation to question 4, results show a good average levels for success score even without specific training. All of them achieves a score at least of 15 out of 30, considering that they only watch a brief video tutorial. The best 3 scores are 27, 28 and 30, so they are high. And the user gets a higher level of success for formulas and lower for collocations. Also, we found that some users who did not make proposals or with a scarce quality found good results in HARTA. And finally, another interesting thing is that they improve while using HARTA in the task. And we conclude that from the second starts, that is, when they go back to the items they couldn't solve in the beginning. And this happens especially with the discourse function tab. So they didn't know how this function works, but then using HARTA and trying to get new results, in the end, they know how it works and find new formulas with this tab. So the observation of the consultation of the tool allowed us to identify more precisely the needs of users during the task of text production. So we found function-related needs, namely several users have difficulty to offer proposals, and then we found usage-related needs. So most of users are not aware of which strategies are necessary for finding a lexical combination that are phraseological but compositional during text production. While our ultimate aim is to identify user needs, we also obtain ideas about how to improve HARTA. So we need to integrate better the information for collocations in the interface, and we need to establish a link to the discourse functions in the entry of a formula. And that's all. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any question or comment about the presentation, we hope we can answer and hear of them during the Congress.